It's 2005 and you just beat Resident Evil 4 for the 4th time. Your palms are sweaty, your heart is racing, and you're pretty sure that Leon Kennedy is the coolest guy in the universe. But then you hear a whisper, a dark whisper from a place called Silent Hill. 2 horror icons and 1 question. Which one reigns supreme? Well, if you click this video, you fall into one of 3 camps. Probably. Camp number 1, you love both the games and they're both your all-time favorites. Number 2, you think comparing them is a crime and I should be locked up, banned from ever touching a controller again. Or 3, you know that they're both great but they're totally different even though they fall under the same genre. You most certainly cannot compare them because one's all action and the other one's all atmosphere. No matter what camp that you pitch your tent in, just know that you're absolutely right. So today we'll be taking a look at these 7 categories to see which game wins where, and at the end of it, there will be a crowned victor. And graphics is where we'll look at first, starting with Silent Hill 2, which came out in 2001. At first glance, you may see all the fog and think that the PlayStation 2 is allergic to rendering anything past 10 feet. But actually, it's the amazing design choices like the fog that adds to the overall creepy and beloved atmosphere. It's not as much about what you see in Silent Hill 2, it's a little bit more about what you don't see. Just like my banking account after a trip to good old Buc-ee's, it's terrifying. Now with Resident Evil 4 over on the GameCube, well, this is where Capcom flexed their sexy virtual muscles. It came out in 2005, so the developers had a little bit more time to play with the hardware. And oh boy, did they know how to use this hardware. Leon's hair probably took up like 50% of the graphics card by itself. For real though, it was a technical powerhouse for its time. The character models, the environments, and the lighting effects, I mean, it was cutting edge technology back then, and it still holds up remarkably today. Silent Hill 2 looks really good for a PlayStation 2 game, but Resident Evil 4 was groundbreaking. 1 point for Resi 4. And next up, we've got gameplay. Now, spoiler alert, one of these games basically created an entire new genre while the other one created, well, traumas. I'll just start off by saying that Silent Hill 2 has tank controls with a fixed camera. It also has really good mind-bending puzzles, but it also has tank controls with a fixed camera. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just imagine trying to parallel park a shopping cart in a Walmart parking lot with 3 broke wheels while you watch from a security camera from the other side of the parking lot. And that's pretty much how it feels to control James. But if you think about it, that's kind of the point. You're not supposed to feel like an action hero. You're just a regular dude wandering through Silent Hill. And those clunky controls kind of make everything scarier because in some cases you're fighting the camera as much as you're fighting the monsters. And speaking of the combat and fighting department, this is kind of where Silent Hill 2 takes a slight hit because of the camera and controls. It definitely makes the game feel scarier, but trying to kill these freaking monsters, it can be kind of a chore. Meanwhile, this is where Resident Evil 4 shines the brightest. Leon Kennedy is out here doing gymnastics and blowing heads off like it's a competitive sport. And although it's still technically tank controls, you have more control over the camera. Therefore, the game feels more tight and responsive. So much so that it basically invented the over-the-shoulder camera angle that we see in a lot of games even today. Pacing, the writing, gameplay, and the combat system are still a gold standard. Plus, the boss fights are awesome. You've got the chainsaw guy, the lake monster, and the creepy little dude that reminds us what it looks like if we never touched a toothbrush again. Long story short, Resident Evil 4's gameplay is addicting and it's fun, and it makes you want to keep playing it. And while Silent Hill 2's gameplay is more methodical and atmospheric, it can feel really clunky by comparison. Another point for Resident Evil 4. Now number 3, what's a good horror game without some spooky tunes to make you feel like you left all your doors unlocked? This section has a clear winner, not necessarily from quality, but quantity. Silent Hill 2 was composed by the legend
Akira Yamaoka,
with every track feeling as though it was ripped straight out of your worst nightmare. With some of the highlights being White Noise, Forest, A World of Madness, Promise, Heaven's Night, and my personal favorite, The Day of Night. This music doesn't just accompany the terror, it's an entire character in itself. Half the time the soundtrack is more unsettling than the creatures you're fighting. Resident Evil on the other hand, it still has some pretty solid bangers, such as Serenity by Jan. This song gives off the feeling of relief and satisfaction that you just survived another grueling section of the game. All while Safe Room accurately describes the emotion of safeness and satisfactory crying. Both soundtracks are phenomenal, but Silent Hill 2 is more iconic for horror vibes alone. Plus, there's a few more options than Resi 4. 1 point to Silent Hill 2. Number 4, we have fun factor, which is a bit more subjective. And if we look at Silent Hill 2, fun might not necessarily be the right word. It feels as though you have signed up for the world's worst camping trip where you constantly ask yourself like every 5 minutes, why? Why did I sign up for this? The fun isn't in winning, it's in the suspense and the mystery and the constant fear of existential dread. It's the equivalent of binge watching your favorite psychological thriller where you're low-key a little scared to go to sleep afterwards. Is it fun in the traditional sense? Nah. But if you're into the spooky horror type of stuff, it's a great kind of torment. Meanwhile, Resident Evil 4 feels like you went to a theme park where everything's on fire and you're holding the flamethrower. It's fast-paced, it's chaotic, and it's fun from start to finish. There's a reason people play Resident Evil 4 a couple hundred times, because it's got that perfect blend of action, horror, and that over-and-top insanity. Look, Silent Hill 2 is a masterpiece, but fun in its traditional sense isn't necessarily its strong suit. Resident Evil 4, though, you're having fun every time you hit new game. So fun factor, no contest, Resident Evil 4.
Hello everyone, my name is Ronnie with one N. Just one of them. Next, we're evaluating the scare factor, which, by the way, is a fascinating psychological construct rooted in our primal fight-or-flight responses. It's immediately clear that Silent Hill 2 is superior. Now, if we look at the semitonic implications of horror, Silent Hill 2, with its dense atmosphere and pervasive sense of dread, creates a more existential horror. You see, in Resident Evil 4, you're just reacting to stimuli. Oh no, here comes a villager with a pitchfork. Scary? Well, that's debatable. But in Silent Hill 2, the horror comes from your own mind. The fog, well, it symbolizes the obfuscation of the human psyche. In Pyramid Head, I mean, do we even need to analyze that? His entire presence is an allegory for repressed guilt and trauma, which is kind of terrifying when you think about it. Anyway, Resident Evil 4 is fun, but Silent Hill 2 is scary in a way that keeps you up at night, pondering in the dark, alone. So yeah, Silent Hill 2 wins without question.
And up next, we have story, because if you're just playing these games for the combat, you're missing like 90% of the emotional damage they're trying to deal to you. Resident Evil 4's story isn't bad, but you're not really here for the deep emotional journey. You're here because Leon Kennedy is supposed to rescue the president's daughter while fighting off cultists and this really freaky alien looking things. It's campy, it's ridiculous, and you'll love every single stinking second of it. Then when you take a peekaroo over at Silent Hill 2, this story is like peeling an onion, with every layer making you cry harder. It's a deep psychological horror wrapped up in a personal journey of guilt, loss, and self-punishment. James is looking for his dead wife in a creepy town full of fog. And spoiler alert, nothing ever goes good in Silent Hill. But here's where things get juicy. Everything you see in Silent Hill 2 is a metaphor for James's guilt. The monsters, his inner struggles. Pyramid Head is basically his conscience on steroids. This is a horror game that makes you feel bad about yourself in ways you didn't even know was possible. It's a dark, tragic story that sticks with you pretty much the rest of your life. You're never gonna forget the story of Silent Hill 2. And that's why it takes the W on this one. But hey, if you want to see a guy kicking cultists' butt while dropping dad jokes, Resi 4 is your game. Another point for Silent Hill 2.
Okay, I'm back. It's my favorite part. It's the reviews. The empirical method by which we gauge the excellence of digital interactive experiences. First up, we have Resident Evil 4, critically acclaimed, very acclaimed. In fact, the critics on Metacritic, the website where we aggregate reviews, gave it a 96 out of 100. That's really, really good. Almost as good as, well, nothing else. It's basically top tier, and the users, they gave it a 9.1 out of 10. So the people playing it, they really liked it too. That's like almost everyone likes this game, except for my uncle. He does not like this game. Silent Hill 2, this game, well, it didn't get like as high of a score as Resident Evil 4, but that's because it's more of a niche title. Yes, niche is art, and not everyone necessarily gets art. so please subscribe. Metacritic gave it an 89 out of 100, which is still really, really good, but the players gave it an 8.8 out of 10. The winner in terms of review scores is, well, it's Resident Evil 4, because, you know, numbers don't lie. If you like your games more deep and metaphorical, then Silent Hill 2 is still really, really emotional, and it's substantially more scary. So you should play both, probably.
So yeah, after breaking everything down, Resident Evil 4 wins in most categories. And it's an action-packed one-liner train ride with good atmosphere, great graphics, and really fun gameplay. I mean, what's not to love about it? It's the Michael Bay of horror games, and there's nothing wrong with that. But let's be real here, Silent Hill 2 is something special. While Resident Evil 4 is fun and all, Silent Hill 2 is the one that leaves a mark on you. It's not about running through hordes of enemies, it's more about dealing with emotions like guilt and regret. It's psychological horror at its finest, and for the people who get it, there's nothing quite like it in gaming. So yeah, Resident Evil 4 may have edged out the win today, but that doesn't take anything away from how incredible Silent Hill 2 is. Both games are legends in their own right. So whichever one's your favorite, I think that we can all agree that horror gaming wouldn't be the same without either one. If you made it this far, click here to see why Silent Hill Shattered Memories costs more than my monthly car payment. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you, and thank you for watching.